How'd you do? Nice people, fine people, Arabia people. Yes, yes, I've met some very nice people. Some very, very, very nice people. But you meet the nicest people in your dreams.
I'm told that all little boys have dreams. Some of them want to be policemen. Others would like to be football stars. Others would like to be a skipper on a Navy ship. Others would like to be newspaper reporters, or perhaps a United States senator, or married to a most attractive bride. Senator John Kennedy of Massachusetts has accomplished all these things in his 36 years, except being a policeman. This seems to be rather the marrying season for senators. The Kennedys were married last month. They're still looking for a place to live in Washington. On weekdays, they stay up in Boston at what used to be the bachelor establishment of the senator. It's on the 3rd floor of this building that you're looking at now, over a barber shop, just on the edge of Beacon Hill. 5 blocks away is North Church, where the lanterns were hung on the night of Paul Revere's famous ride. The Boston Massacre also took place not far from here. But so much for the history. Let's go and meet the newlyweds. Are you there, Senator?
Yes, right here, Mr. Morrow.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mrs. Kennedy.
Good evening.
I understand that the two of you had a very much publicized courtship. How did the two of you meet?
We met at the house of a friend about 2 years ago.
And you used to be a reporter, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you first met the senator when you interviewed him.
Well, I interviewed him shortly after I met him.
Well, now, which requires the most diplomacy, to interview senators or to be married to one?
Well, I think
Being married to one, I guess.
Well, have you opened all your wedding gifts?
Well, I've opened quite a few of them, and I've sent them all to Washington. We just have a couple back here.
Aha. Senator, I wonder if you would show us around your apartment a bit?
Certainly will. Fine, Mr. Morrow.
Okay.
This, I remember when you were over in England, and I thought you might remember this picture that was taken when my family were all over there in 1939 when my father was ambassador.
Oh, I remember it very well. There he is in the center, isn't he?
Yes, that's right, and I have my 8 brothers and sisters. That's almost the last time we were all taken together, and brings back happy memories.
Well, Senator, you had some rather anxious moments yourself during the war, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You were in PT boats, weren't you?
Yes, I was. During the Solomon Islands campaign, we worked off of, first off of Tulagi and then off the Rendover and the New Georgia Island, and then finally up close to Bella La Bella towards the end of 1943.
Is that a model of your PT boat there?
Yes, it is. That was made over at, by some friends of mine over at the Boston Navy Yard. The PT on which I was on, PT 109, was cut in two while we were attacking a Jap destroyer on August 2nd, 1943. And we more or less hit head on. At least he hit over through here and cut through to the end of the boat and proceeded, unfortunately, on his way. We, after about 6 or 7 days, we landed on Nauru Island and ran into a native, and we gave him a coconut and with a message written on it, which he took back to Rendover. When I get back to Rendover a couple of days later, I picked up the coconut, and I have it here in plastic, so it's pretty well shrunk up, but at least it reminds me of a interesting experience.
Interesting. I should think that would be one of the great understatements. Senator, what's the picture just above the coconut there on the wall?
Well, that's a picture of the destroyer 850, which was named after my brother. He was, after they landed at D-Day, the rocket emplacements, as you remember, were bothering the British, and they sent over some radar-controlled planes, which the pilot was supposed to bail out, and then the plane was to be guided into the target, the rocket emplacement, but the plane blew up too soon, and so this destroyer was named after him by the Navy. You might be interested to know, to prove that wars sometimes bring people together, During the campaign last summer, it was written up in Time magazine that I was running, and it mentioned our experience in the Solomons, and I got a letter about a month later from the commander of the Japanese destroyer, which ran us down, which turned out to be the Amagiri. He read, when I read the Time magazine of August 18, 1952, which mentioned the battle in question, my memory being refreshed, I can vividly recall what happened at the time. He said, it was early in June 1943 I was transferred to Rabaul as the commander of the destroyer Amagiri. From that time, the counterattack of the American forces became increasingly offensive. In one of the night battles in August 1943, I sighted a bold enemy boat of small size was heading directly towards my destroyer of a larger type. Having no time to exchange gunfire as ships came so close to each other, my destroyer had to directly hit the enemy boat, slicing it in two. To my great surprise, this boat happened to be the PT, which was under your command. And so that he sent me good wishes in the campaign, and I hope sometime if I ever go to Japan to meet him.
Well, Senator, since we're talking about the last war, do you think we're ready for an all-out war now if another should come?
Well, I think that there is a great deal we have to do. I think, of course, the basic question in which we're now attempting to decide is whether we should attempt to build up and devote a great deal of our money to a strong continental defense system and a effective strategic air force, or whether really the best hope of survival rests in a air force second to none, with retaliatory powers that will be sufficient to force the Russians to hold their hand. Unfortunately, today, I don't think we're doing either. And due to the stretch-outs of 1952 and then again in 1953, in Air Force power, instead of having the 143 air groups that the Chief of Staff considered to be the minimum for our defense in 1954, we're now only going to have 126 groups by the end of 1956. So that I don't think that a nation which is as rich and powerful as ours should be satisfied with anything less than an Air Force second to none. I don't think today we have it. In addition, I think we have a great deal to do in attempting to build up the strength in our Western European allies. And in addition, I don't think we should resign ourselves to the ultimate prospect of an atomic war, but should attempt to work out some arrangement, perhaps only through being so strong ourselves that we can avert it, because that will be the ruin of everything that is important in this country and all over the world.
Well, Senator, let's change to a domestic subject. You're a member of the Labor Committee, aren't you?
Yes, Mr. Morrow. I was in it for 6 years in the House, and I'm on it now in the Senate.
And there's a great deal of talk about changing the Taft-Hartley law. What's wrong with it in your view?
Well, I think that some things are right. Perhaps somebody can answer my phone, I guess. I think there are some things that are good about it. I think the attempt to provide democracy for the union members, do something about national emergencies, though I don't think the provisions are completely satisfactory. And I was for the Communist Affidavit resolution in 1947. However, I do think that in time of depression, when there was a large group of unemployed, that the Taft-Hartley would be at least provisions of it. Those provisions, I think the secondary boycott provision is too stern. I think the provision which provides that state laws are more harsh on union security arrangements, that they should be superior to the federal law. I think the provision which doesn't permit union members, which permits strike breakers to vote if union members go out on strike, whether there should be a union or not, I think those are some of the provisions that might be changed. I hope we can get some unanimous agreement, as we've been talking really about changing the Taft-Hartley bill since 1947. But I see that my wife is back, so we'll get back to...
I brought you one of the wedding presents, which I think is Jack's favorite, which he's always throwing around this apartment.
Well, this present was a present from Jim Farrell, who was in charge of handing out athletic equipment when I was at college at Harvard, and he's still doing it. This probably was the football that Harvard was going to use for its first game, but in any case, he sent it to me, and I certainly appreciated it, and I must say it's probably my favorite.
Well, Senator, could I ask you another question on domestic affairs?
Yes.
I'm told that some of your constituents are worried about the possibility of a depression. Do you share their concern in this matter?
Well, I think, Mr. Morrow, we're still in pretty good shape nationwide, but I do know, of course, we're all concerned about the drop in farm prices, which was a preliminary, as you remember, to the Depression in 1929. A good farm policy to do something about that has to be the first job, I think, of the coming Congress. In addition, our production index dropped in September over August, and it usually moves up. I don't think there needs to be a depression, and I think or a recession, and I think if we take advantage of our built-in stabilizers in our economy, a strong farm program, boosting up Social Security payments and maybe raising the minimum wage, having a good credit policy, and having an effective fiscal policy which will stimulate the economy of the country. I think that we can move ahead, and I think it's going to be a vital job because we have to keep people working. If we start to slip into a recession, we'll have to reduce taxes more and perhaps increase government spending. But savings are at an all-time high, and I think that if we take effective countermeasures now before it's too late, we are infinitely better off than we were in the late 20s to ward one off.
Senator, I understand that you had a lot of tea parties during your campaign. Can you still drink tea?
Because as a matter of fact, I drank it then and it turned out very well, so I must say I've gotten to like it.
Do you have a chance to do much reading?
Yes, I used to very much, and I try to do it as much as I can now.
Have you found anything that has been particularly useful, or perhaps I could use the word inspirational to you?
Well, I do have something here. It was written by Alan Seagull, who, as you remember, was born in New York and fought in the Foreign Legion and was killed in the First World War in 1916.
Yes.
He wrote that famous poem, I Have a Rendezvous with Death, and just before he died, he wrote a letter home to his mother, which I think has good advice for all of us. He said, "Whether I am on the winning or losing side is not the point with me. It is being on the side where my sympathies lies that matters. Success in life means doing that thing than which nothing else conceivable seems more noble or satisfying or remunerative, and then being ready to see it through to the end." I think that's probably good advice for all of us.
Well, Senator Kennedy, thank you very much for letting us come to visit you, and will you also express our thanks to Mrs. Kennedy?
Thank you very much, Mr. Morrow. I'm sure we appreciate it very much.
This is Tomorrowpictures.TV.